I was entering the 6th grade when my mother, our 2 dogs, and I moved to Montgomery, Alabama after going through a particularly brutal divorce from her 3rd husband. The house she purchased wasn't huge or fancy. It was a small 3-bedroom, 1-bath built in the early 1800s. The walls were poured concrete, the doorknobs were crystal, and the floors were still the original hardwood. It had a good foundation and a lot of character in a quiet neighborhood filled with elderly people. For a while, it seemed like the perfect place for us. We were so happy to have a fresh start and a house to call her home. So happy that when the previous homeowner came to get some old mail and refused to come inside the gate, we didn't even question it. The woman who sold us the home was in her late 20s at the time, and she said she'd bought the house for her and her fiancé, who had tragically passed in a car accident. The owners before her, I believe, died in the house, but we were told from old age. Anyway, everything seemed to be going great for a while. I settled into school, and my mom settled into her new job. We both easily adapted and made new friends. I can't pinpoint exactly when everything started, mostly because I was trying too hard to convince myself it was only my eyes playing tricks on me, or I was simply tired or mistaken. Countless times I'd see a tiny little dog out the corner of my eye and would write it off thinking it was our Pomeranian or Chihuahua. The problem was, when I'd see the creature, our dogs weren't even in the same room. There's no telling how long I would have denied what I was seeing if one night when it happened, my mother hadn't been in the same room. We were standing there in the dining room talking when we both turned our heads at the same time to look at the tiny dog-sized creature that ran past us into the living room. When she saw me turn my head too, she said, You saw it too?" It had been happening to her the entire time as well. And guys, that's only the beginning of the creepiness. My aunt and uncle came to stay with us when passing through on their way to Florida to see a NASCAR race. They slept in the living room, where you guessed it, the creature made its appearance, but this time crawled onto their air mattress while they were on it. But of course, when they went to find the dog, nothing was there. My uncle wrote it off, saying he thought it was a giant nutria rat. But he also said he'd never be staying at our house again. From here, things only escalated. At this time, I shared a bed with my mother, as we only could afford the one at the time, and a lot of our furniture had been lost in Katrina. Well, we are in bed, and we both feel one of the dogs jump in the bed with us. It's the middle of the night, and highly annoying to have little feet stepping all over your legs. My mom says, "Allie, go get the dog and put it back in the kennel." The kennel was right by the bed, so it wasn't really a big task. I start to stir in order to grab for the pup, but he jumps down and retreats under the bed. I turn on the light and bend down so I can grab him and open the kennel door to put him in. And guys, this is the part that terrified me. I could still hear the thing under the bed, but it was not my dog, because my dog was in the kennel. They both were and had been all night, so I scream and jump back on the bed. I'm terrified and my mother is confused. She wants to know what's wrong, so I tell her, "Mom, the dogs are in the cage." Now she's freaked out, but goes to look under the bed, and there's nothing there. Fast forward a week or two. I'm doing my homework in the living room when I hear my mother's voice frantically calling for me. I wasn't sure what to expect, but what happened next, I will never forget. I travel down the hall and enter the bedroom where she was at, and am met by a glowing green orb hovering near the doorway where I was at. So again, I'm terrified and jump in the bed with her. I'm also very mad. She called me to be in the room with it. Meanwhile, my brain is trying to make some logical explanation that was anything but supernatural for this glowing green monstrosity that was moving up and down on the floor, on the walls, and the center of the room. I looked to the window, hoping someone maybe was playing a joke. Maybe there was a laser beam, maybe something, anything. But what was my reality? Then the orb vanished. It was over. A few weeks more passed, and my mom has her friend come stay the night with us. We made her a pallet on the floor in the room we were also sleeping in. Everything was fine, and we had a great movie night, but we were tired, so we go to bed. My mom and I were both sound asleep when we heard my mom's friend screaming. I quickly jump up to turn on the lights and found myself looking at a traumatized house guest. She said someone had been sitting on top of her and tried to choke her, but there was no one there. She refused to come back after that. Now, we were in this house a few years. The only constant occurrence was the dog creature. Eventually, I got my own room. I hadn't been sleeping in there long when I was woken by my bed shaking and what seemed to be a 7-foot-tall hooded figure standing there holding out its hand for me to take. I didn't, and I was too terrified to move or even scream. This is probably the most terrified I've ever been in my life. I've been told it sounds like sleep paralysis, but I swear I was awake and there was something in my room that wanted me to come with it. I don't know what would have happened if I'd taken that outstretched hand, but I don't think I'd be here today recounting these events. At this point, my mom had had enough of the thing in our house. We tried blessing all the rooms and even having a priest come. We burned sage and tried cleansing rituals, but the thing never left. Eventually, my mother listed the house for sale, and we planned on moving back to Mississippi. It took a year for the house on Bradley Drive to sell. During that time, my mother had gotten a work friend to come by and check on it. This didn't last long. One night, the work friend and her boyfriend came by the house and apparently decided they were going to get romantic in the bedroom. Her boyfriend put her on the bed and went to take her shirt off. Well, during this, she caught sight of the 7-foot-tall demon blocking the doorway. The boyfriend turned and looked. He saw it too. She said it just felt like it wanted them out. And like all the other things, it just faded out after what felt like an eternity of them staring at it in horror. They too refused to come back inside the house. Since we moved, the house has been sold over and over and over. It was even foreclosed upon. I honestly wonder if the residents that followed us had the same problems. I drove past that house for the first time since we moved a few months back. I want to say it'd been since 2006 since I'd seen it. It appears that there was a fire, and the 2-car garage in the backyard had completely burned down. I'd love to know what happened. I'd love to know what was in that house, but I guess I never will.